We are live streaming.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lawson.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for the District Library Book Objection Committee meeting. Our purpose is to review an objection to the book titled Nothing by Annie Barrow. I'm Dawn Sapp, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Mr. Forson has designated me as the chair of this committee, and I'll be facilitating today's meeting. School-based and district staff, as well as parent and community volunteers, are invited to participate on each committee. Today's meeting will result in a recommendation that will be forwarded to Mr. Forson, the St. Johns County School District Superintendent. The committee meeting is public record and therefore subject to sunshine law. It is being live streamed for public viewing. Committee members are not required to have their camera on during the meeting. We are committed to civility and decorum. Please assist us in maintaining a constructive meeting environment by remaining respectful of each participant during the meeting and afterward. Additional discussion of the objecting party or committee members outside of the meeting is discouraged. Disparaging comments are contrary to district expectations regarding character and civility. Committee members received several resources in advance of this meeting. The resources included the objecting party's request for reconsideration, a copy of the book, Florida statutes, Florida Department of Education guidance for library media services, professional source reviews, St. Johns County School Board rules, the Library Bill of Rights, and a school library media material evaluation checklist. The process for today is as follows. First, the objecting party has an opportunity to address the committee. They will provide any information they deem compelling or new regarding their request. Next, the committee will have a discussion utilizing the school library material evaluation checklist. Finally, the decision by majority vote will determine a recommendation for Superintendent Forson. Possible recommendations can range from retaining the book as it currently stands, retaining the book for with grade level restrictions, requiring parent permission, or removing the book from all St. Johns County School District libraries. For our meeting today, both agreeable and opposing viewpoints are welcomed. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, our objecting party, Kate Sandvik, is unable to join us today, so we will forego the objecting party's opportunity to address the committee. Committee members, please refer to the school library media material evaluation form for our discussion. As a reminder, Florida statute states that any materials used in a classroom, made available in a school or classroom library, or included on a reading list may be objected to for 4 very specific reasons. The first reason number 1, the material is pornographic or prohibited under section 847.012 of Florida statute. If the majority of this committee determines that the material is pornographic or prohibited, the recommendation should be to remove the material from our libraries. For the remaining 3 reasons, the committee will determine if there is an appropriate grade level for this material, or if the material should be removed. The remaining 3 reasons are: the material depicts or describes sexual conduct as defined in 847.001 parentheses 19. The material is not suited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material. And the material is inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used. Keep in mind that our final task is to make a recommendation to Superintendent Forson, and our recommendations can range from retaining the book as it currently stands, restricting the book to specific grade levels, requiring parent permission, or removing the book from St. Johns County School District libraries. The floor will be open to discussion, and each committee member will have the opportunity to share. Comments will be summarized to provide an overall committee response for each question. Please remember to raise your hand to provide a comment. For our meeting today, both agreeable and opposing viewpoints are welcomed. We will now go through the checklist together. I will read the questions, ask if there are any comments, and then we will vote. let's begin. So if you refer to your media material evaluation checklist, question number 1 is a space to cite what is the objecting party's challenge to the material. So we will take the language directly from the objecting parties where they stated their objection, and we will place it on number 1. For question number 2, this is for Mr. Forson, just to know the level of engagement by the committee. So we're going to be asked 2 questions, question 2 and question 3. So for question 2, specific pages in the material that were cited by the objecting party were reviewed. If you did review the pages that were cited, please indicate by voting yes. If you did not review those pages, please indicate by voting no.
Ms. Sapp, we have 7 yes votes for question number 2.
Thank you. You may clear your votes. We'll move on to question 3. For question 3, professional and/or crowdsource reviews were considered. If you considered the professional and/or crowdsource reviews, please vote now with a yes. If you did not consider the professional or crowdsource reviews, please indicate by voting no.
Ms. Sapp, for question number 3, we have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. You may all clear your votes. For our remaining questions, I will read the question. I'll ask if there are any comments. If you have a comment, please indicate by raising your hand, and then we'll call for a vote. Question number 4, is the material pornographic or prohibited under Florida Statute 847.012? Are there any comments or questions? Okay, so seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. The question is the material pornographic or prohibited under Florida Statute 847.012?
Ms. Sapp, for question 4, we have 1 yes vote and 6 no votes. You may now clear your vote.
Okay, we'll move on to question 5. Does the material depict or describe sexual conduct defined in Florida Statute 847.001, parentheses 19? Are there any comments before we vote? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Does the material depict or describe sexual conduct defined in Florida Statute 847.001, parentheses 19?
Ms. Sapp, for question 5, we have 1 yes vote and 6 no votes. You may now clear your vote.
Thank you. Moving on to question 6. Is the material unsuited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented? Are there any comments before we vote?
We have 1 hand.
Okay.
Kate Houston, go ahead.
I just want to share why I'm voting the way I'm voting for this question. And I just feel like the content in this book is not appropriate for a middle school audience. When you look at the crowd, when you look at the reviews, all the ones that I saw said that it was for a 9-12 audience. I don't think that middle schoolers have the context for understanding the type of lifestyle and behaviors that the girls talk about and want to engage in, or dream about engaging in, even if they don't. I don't think that middle schoolers have the nuance for that, and that they can't pick up on some of the sarcasm that's inherent in this story. Um, so my vote for this question is going to be yes, and that I don't think it should be in the middle school classroom. High school or middle school library, high school is a different story, but I feel like we're looking at this it was brought forth by a middle school with a middle school lens. And when I look at it with a middle school lens, I agree with the objector that it's not suitable for that audience.
Thank you, Kate. I don't see any other hands, so we will go ahead and call. Oh, I do see a hand. Brian, go ahead with your comment.
Considering the votes that have been done already and that people on this call do consider it to be pornographic, which wouldn't allow it in any classroom, I'm confused why anyone would want it in any classroom if they thought that it was pornography. So those two viewpoints kind of are curious to me in terms of the way the voting is going. So I mean, I have middle schoolers. I read the book. I find it to be completely innocuous. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Trey. And I'm going to revisit the results that we had for question number 4. Is the material pornographic? And I believe we had 1 yes, it's pornographic, and 6 no's to pornographic. Is that correct, Dr. Lawson?
That is correct.
Okay.
We do have one more hand up right now.
Okay. Go ahead, Kate.
I am the yes voter on number 4, but number 4 is phrased, is the material pornographic or prohibited under this particular statute? So that or there is what gets me. When I look at that statute, I do think that based on the statute, this book is harmful to minors and that it appeals to prurient interest. It is offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable material or conduct for middle school students. And it is without serious literary value. I don't think it's pornographic, but I do think that it fulfills the other elements of the nature of that statute, of the verbiage of that statute.
Thank you, Kate. And just to offer a little bit of clarity on question number 4, if the majority of the committee deemed this material to be pornographic or prohibited under the Florida statute, our conversation at the end would probably be very different. But once we get to questions 5, 6, and 7, it is really a matter of, is there an age group that attends St. Johns County schools that this material can be appropriate for? And so as we work our way through 5, 6, and 7, that's what we're working towards is there an age group that it's appropriate for? So we are on question number 6. Take us back. I don't see any additional hands at this time, so we will go ahead and call for the vote. Is the material unsuited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented?
Ms. Sapp, for question 6, we have 1 yes vote and 6 no votes. You may now clear your vote.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to address question 7 For this question, we always ask Ms. Sikowski if she can tell us where is this material currently available for St. Johns County students in our media centers.
So currently this book is available in the high school collections.
Okay. So just for everybody to get a perspective of, you know, what we're going to be thinking through, is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used? So in St. Johns County, currently, it is available in our high school libraries. So are there any comments before we move forward?
We have a few hands raised. Kate Houston, go ahead.
I'm confused because this objection came from Palm Valley Academy, where the book was checked out at Palm Valley Academy, which is a 6-8. If it's just at the high school level, as I said before, for me, that changes the lens. But when it's available to middle schoolers, that's where I get where it just changes my view of this. So can we clarify whether it is available? Perhaps I know the public, some of our middle schools have 8th grade only rooms. Like where is this book?
Okay, and so Kim Dixon, if you could help us with how we landed here. But I will say, you know, when the book comes to us as a committee, it doesn't really have a any grade level restriction on it. The media specialists at our different schools make the decisions based on what they think is best for their collections. Once it comes to this committee and we put a grade level band on it, then it would only be available for that grade level band. But Ms. Dixon, if you can give us a little history. Or
That was a
whoever's
great explanation. Hi, yes. So this book was available at middle school, and the objection did come from a middle school, not a high school. The middle school did determine that the book should be removed from their collection. And because it's removed, then that automatically initiates a district objection so that we can review the book and its appropriateness for our schools.
So it's currently not, that was the only, let me just clarify, Ms. Dixon, that was the only middle school where this book was. And they determined at that school that they wanted to remove it from the middle school collection. It is available in our high school collections. But anytime we get an objection, we bring it to the district level for, if the school takes an action, then we bring it to the district committee to see if we need to make a district-wide decision.
Well, I'm not sure if it was only available at the one middle school. At this time, it is only available at high schools. There may have been other schools that had it, but it may have been weeded for other reasons prior to or even following this, because there are several reasons that schools may determine a book should be weeded from their collection. So I don't want to say that it was only available at one school at all times.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Trey, go ahead.
In watching these calls and the board meetings and stuff, I do spend a lot of time looking at the Destiny system. And when I did see that this was 6 through 8 in Palm Valley, I did check the Palm Valley Destiny directly and also the countywide, and this book wasn't found there, so I couldn't see, you know, like what kind of tags there are. So I was just curious about what kind, if there's any kind of lag time or anything between, like, is this a new book that isn't in the system yet, or I was just curious, but I did check to see what Destiny had on this and couldn't find it in there.
So just for the good of this committee, when an objection is first raised, it's considered an informal objection, and the objecting party contacts the school principal, and the school principal reviews the title with their media specialist, their committee, their library book committee for their school. So in this instance, at the informal committee level, the principal decided they didn't think this book was appropriate for middle school, and they chose to remove it from the middle school collection. So I'm assuming that's why we don't see it. Ms. Dixon, feel free to jump in.
So Ms. Stokowski, I'd like you to address that question regarding its availability in our Destiny system. And is it available? Are there any high schools that currently have this book? So it would still come up unless you were searching specifically at a middle school or the middle school level. If you change that location to any school in St. Johns County, you should be able to see that in any tags that are attached to that book. Correct, Misty?
Well, you will not because it's under quarantine because the objecting party put that the book was pornographic. So we have to quarantine that title
Oh, that's
once
why.
once there is an objection placed on the title. And so it is currently listed at high schools in our catalog, but because the title was listed as quarantined on the objecting party's objection form, it must be quarantined. And so that's why you cannot see it in Destiny at all. Does that
Okay.
help clarify the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And so according to the law, if the objecting party indicates that the material, if their objection has anything to do with sexual content, we are required to quarantine if we cannot make a decision within 5 days. And because of the procedures we have in place, we know we can't do it within 5 days. So many of our books are quarantined until we finish the objection process. Okay, Glenn, go ahead.
For purposes of question number 7, should we assume then that this is only for high school? So when we answer that question, we're saying yes or no for high school only?
I would say I'm gonna go back and say because it was objected to at a middle school. So I do think we should consider middle and high school when we're thinking about answering this question, but just foreshadowing, our next item after we work our way through these questions, so we've thought about all the different reasons that we might keep or restrict a book, then we will have a conversation about what are we actually going to recommend to the superintendent. So I would say for this, because it was in middle and high, let's just take it from the perspective of, is the material appropriate for grades 6 through 8? Because that is where it was, although it may not be now. So question number 7, is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used? Let's call for the vote.
Looks like we have one. Dr. Seward, did you want to make a comment?
I did have a question. In this particular situation, I feel that for 8th grade, it may be appropriate, but not for 6th and 7th.
Okay, thank you. So we're still going to answer the question from the lens of 612. Just so we're all on the same page, just for this question, is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used? So we are now voting. Do we have all the votes in?
We need one more vote.
Okay.
Wait, can you clarify? We're doing a second vote now to say whether it is 612?
We're still on question
sorry.
number 7. No. Is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which it is used? And our grade level band we're considering is 612. Is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which the material is used?
I think okay. We had a vote change and then a change back.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody good with their vote right now? If you are, leave it. Okay, so Ms. Sapp, for question 7, we have 5 yes votes and 2 no votes. You may now remove your vote.
Okay. So now we are at the stage where, as a committee, we need to make a recommendation to Mr. Forson, our superintendent, on what is the appropriate place for this book. So, if you think about the way that the questions were answered and the discussion that we've had, now I would like to open the floor for someone to comment or make a suggestion of where they believe this material should be. Do we have any hands? Is anyone willing?
Dr. Seward?
Yes, as I was saying before, I think that maybe 8th grade and higher, 9th through 12th, it would be fine, but I don't think that it would be sufficient for grade 6 and 7.
Okay, so Dr. Seward has put on the table that appropriate for grades 8 through 12. Are there any other comments or suggestions for where this would be most appropriate? Go ahead, Nicole.
I think it would be most appropriate just at the high school level and not including the 8th grade level due to the vocabulary and some of the more adult topics that are touched on in this book.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment before we move forward with making a motion? Okay, so at this point, the way this will work is I will take a motion for where we want to start. And then we will see if there's a second to the motion. If we get a second, we will vote. If we do not get a second on the motion, then I'll ask for the next motion. Okay, so Glenn, go ahead and make your motion.
I'd like to motion for 8 and up.
Okay, Glenn has made a motion for 8 and up. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Dr. Seward. I second that motion.
Okay, Dr. Seward.
ahead,
Brian, I see your
Brian.
hand is up.
I was going to second that as well.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that to recommend to Mr. Forson that this material be available for grades 8 through 12. So we are going to vote on that now. If you agree that this title should be available for grades 8 through 12, you'll vote with a yes. If you disagree, you'll vote with a no.
Ms. Sapp, for the motion to keep this book for grades 8 through 12, we have 5 yes votes and 2 no votes. You may now remove your vote.
Okay, so the motion passes. And so our recommendation to Mr. Forson by the majority vote of the committee will be that this book should be restricted basically to grade levels 8 through 12. And so at this time, I always like to open it up. Just as a reminder, Mr. Forson reviews, we provide a summary of all the comments. He reviews all of this in its entirety. Are there any comments that anyone would like included in our submission to Mr. Forson? Go ahead, Brian.
I do notice on this particular objection form, one of the questions 3 says, identify the portion of the material objected to and why. I never really saw any reasoning behind the objections in that particular instance. So I think it would be helpful to either go back to the objector and get more info other than, just details in the book like that. Just to kind of give the committees more of an idea of what, because it's just such a, the pornographic and pornography, it's such a biting term that, the comments I saw there, I just honestly, I thought this objection was a joke at first, that it was somebody finding a really tame book and acting like it was All Boys Aren't Blue, or some of the really some of the stuff that even the most hardened book activists would be like, okay, maybe that's not really suitable for that grade. This to me was, I honestly didn't think it was a legitimate objection. I would have liked to have heard from the objector at the beginning of the call, like some of the other meetings. So that was unfortunate, but I mean, I'd like to see more of an emphasis on ensuring that the objector is not really up to the same standard as the media specialists and all of the collaboration and consensus and training that happens on the school side. And then on the objection side, there's no evaluation of competency or legitimacy. You know, it's just like it's so opposite of the legal system where the burden is always on the prosecution, but in this case, the burden is always on the defense. And I really think that that's kind of backwards. So that's my comment, my comment there, that there would be more of an emphasis to get some of the context around the objection other than passages, especially since it says "and why." I would think that that's a critical piece that needs to be have more oversight on to ensure that there's a little more context around the objection.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have any comments they'd like to have included? Okay, well, given that, I just have a few more things to so we can finish up our work. So first of all, thank you to all of you for your participation. We really appreciate you taking time to be thorough and for being available for this meeting today. We have 2 final action steps to conclude our work. The first one, we need your acknowledgement as a participation on the committee. So the recommendation, which will include notes from today's discussion, will be emailed to you. You may acknowledge participation by responding to that email. Or you can come in person and review and sign the documents at our Media Services office, which is at 3015 Lewis Speedway. And just to give context, if you know where Sebastian Middle School is, this office is located in their northern parking area. The second thing we need everybody to do is to return your book and any notes you have from your work in preparing for the meeting to the location where you picked up your book. And if we could just make sure that everyone tries to complete those tasks by the end of the week. I know that Ms. Dixon's team is pretty quick about getting the notes out to everyone so that you can respond with your acknowledgement. And then if we can try to get all of those books back by the end of the week, that would be great. So as far as next steps for Mr. Forson, of course, he will review and make a decision. He will communicate his decision to the objecting party, and our website will be updated. This typically happens within about 15 days. So you may check the website in a couple of weeks and you will see the final resolution. Are there any questions before we close the meeting? Okay, this concludes the meeting. Thank you.